My introduction was going to be, my name is Howard A. Haines, Jr., and this is my my wife, Evelyn, and she brought cookies along to make me look good, and I appreciate that. Now, as you might have discerned, that I am a beekeeper. I'm a beekeeper on good days. Most of the time, I'm just a key beeper. For the simple reason, I stand in awe of this little portion of God's creation. I stand in awe because of their work ethic, their discipline, their production. They produce, each bee, I've heard various amounts, some of which is only 1/12 of a teaspoon of honey for their whole life. I've heard it up to a teaspoon. But if you look over here, there's some honey over here on the table. They're in pounds, and 1/12 of the teaspoon, I don't even know how much that would weigh. But anyways, the most important character, though, that I see is they have an altruistic character in which they have the bees that are work during the summer do all the work to bring in the honey, never get to eat a bite of it, other than what it would take for them to live. They never have a chance to eat the product of all their work. And when they defend the hive, they'll go out and sting. And I'm not going to mention any names. But they do sting, and when they do that, they actually will die because a portion of their body will pull out and stay with the stinger, and then they end up dying. We'll talk about that later. But I want to share for tonight, what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about some of the history of bees in the world, and we're going to be talking about hives, both feral or wild hives and domesticated. We're going to talk about the bees themselves with the caste system where there's hierarchy and then there's jobs that are involved. And we'll go through that, try to get through this. And there's swarms. How many of you have ever seen a swarm? Okay, lots of people have seen swarms out hanging from a tree, or just a cloud of bees flying by. And we'll talk about that, some of the things involved with that. And then we'll talk about honey, the nectar, and why there's different colors of honey, why there's different tastes. Each and every flower that produces nectar that is not poisonous to the bee produces a type of honey, a flavor of honey, some more than other. Each and every flower. Now, I'm not going to guess how many flowers there are, but we'll talk about that and some of the collection of the honey and some of the, you'll see, we have some different parts of the hive here. We have some things that some of it is actually right full of honey. And you can see what it looks like when it's all collected and all set for the winter. And this is what it will look like. We'll let's start off with the history. Ever since history has been written down, every culture that has bees in their area. Now, I'm sure that the Arctic and the Antarctic don't have any bees there, but every culture that has lived in an environment where there is bees, feral bees, they have used it for not only food, but also for medicines. Now, some of the things they used it as medicine, it doesn't do what they wanted it to do. But up until the 1940s, raw honey was used for open wound care. Raw honey was used for open wound care, and I say 1940s because that's when they discovered antibiotics. And since then, they've gotten away from using the honey, but it is still effective. And I think we brought along the list of, did we bring that along? Maybe not. There's a list, an exhaustive list of things that raw honey, now I need to be specific, raw honey is very good for taking care of wounds and open wound care. It has been secular history written down. They write about using honey. The scriptures have it in the Old Testament as well as the New Testament. It mentions honey, and it's also associated with richness. And when it talks about the Old Testament, it talks about the Israelites going into a land of milk and honey, which is a land that is plenteous with foods and all that is needed for life. And it not only is just the foods for life, but it also a richness of life. In fact, there's pictures of the pyramids there simply because they put honey into the pyramids, and the archaeologists have found containers of honey in the pyramids that was put there for the pharaoh in his afterlife. He hasn't found it yet, but they found it, and it was absolutely solidly crystallized. There was no liquid at all in it, but they recognized the people that were in there looking at it, they recognized that it was honey, and so they warmed it up to 100 degrees, and then it came back to liquid. All the crystals melted, and then they tested it so that they knew there wasn't anything put in it that would put the pharaoh in there in the first place. But then they were able to eat it. They ate 3 or 4,000 year old honeys, and it was good. So honey is one food that unless if it's unadulterated with liquids, it will last forever. Now, I'm going to be moving along so that I can get through everything that I've set up for tonight. And I'd like to open it up for some questions, but I'll give some time for some questions at the end of the session, if that's okay. The hives, feral hives, in this, even now, hives that are in the wild will live they usually live in any structure. Now, caves or hollow trees or underneath overhangs in nature. And the one problem, there is people have been collecting the honey from these areas since they found them there. And but the problem with that is the only way they could get the honey out of the comb was they had to crush the comb to squeeze it and break the cells, break the beeswax, and to let the honey come out of it. Now, as we see in this log, there is some comb that is in there, and that is the type of a situation where there would be honeybees in a log. And when people take the honey out of there, take the comb out of there, number one, they can't put it back. Number two, they have to crush it. And there is a lot of time, most times, there may be some honey, it may be solidly honey, but it may not all be honey. There can be eggs, there can be larvae, there can be pupa in there, and they would kill them and destroy future generations of bees. So that is one of the drawbacks. Now, in the center there is also skeps. Now, these are items that man has tried to domesticate bees and get something that they can raise bees in and get honey out of. And this was an attempt to use skep. A skep is a beehive where they braid straw, grass, whatever, together and make a rope. And as you can see, they lay it in layers around and make an opening in there. And then they put a little bit of either honey or some comb in there to get it started, to draw the bees in. And then they they make a hive inside there. An attempt to domesticate the bees. But they still have the same problem. They still have to destroy the comb to get the honey out of it. Now we're on the right-hand side there is a Langstroth hive. This is a Langstroth hive. A Langstroth hive, and what it is a hive in which there we can see it a little bit better. The Langstroth hive is a series of boxes with frames very much like this. The frames are straight, and they're made so that they have, when the bees when they put the comb on it, it will look very much like this. And now this has some stuff in it that it normally looks a little bit cleaner than this, but, and they clean it up and have it, in fact, we have some right here. This is what it normally would look like, and they will have, there will be, on both sides, there's cells, and they will have the bees in that, and they lay eggs in there. They raise their bees in them, on them, and it is each of these frames in there, they're straight. Number one, and they use the hive, the area within the hive the best way. Number two, you can take it out, take the frame out, and check to find out whether there's any diseases, whether there's anything impairing the health or the welfare of the hive, and you can put it back. This frame over here is one that I had taken out of the hive. Now, I took it out. I took the honey out of it, and I can put that back, and they will accept it. And it's straight. It's not in a log hive. It is that you can't. The comb is all intact, and all I did was to break the caps that they put on the comb, and we'll get to that in a little bit. They're not crushed. They are easily, well, I say easily. They're removed, and I don't know what I did with my hive tool. Over here, I think. There is the hives in the feral hives collect, and even domesticated bees will bring in what is called propolis. And propolis is something that is very sticky, and it holds the comb in place. There's also a secondary benefit that it sanitizes the inside of the hive. That's one of the benefits of it, and it will help to hold things together. And I have a tool that I have to pry these frames apart, pry them away from the ends, and try to not get that sticky stuff on my clothes and take it into a certain you-know-who to clean, and because it's very hard to get off. The I think I'll just move on for this. This over here on the right-hand side, there is a couple things here. Number one, you notice the two down there where it said the two bottom boxes is called, they're the brood boxes. And they're thicker. They are thicker here and than these up here. The brood boxes is where the queen stays, and I use a queen excluder like this to keep her down here in these two boxes. Now they will bring in the honey. There will be honey stored in there, enough to have them survive the winter. And I put this right in this area so that the queen has to stay down here, and the drones will stay down here. Those are the males, and they stay down here. Now, anything above that is harvestable honey up there. Anyways, and the reason I use smaller boxes up here is because these, when they get full of honey, will weigh between 45 and 48 pounds each box. These down here will weigh between 80 and 85 when they are full. And this old back ain't what it used to be. So I use that to try to make my job a little bit easier. This is another view of the boxes. Let's talk about the bees themselves. As you can see on the left one is the queen. She is the head of the hive, and she is the leader. She keeps things going, and her main job is to lay eggs. She lays eggs, and she'll lay between 1,200 and 2,000 per day. Per day. Now, if she, as she gets older and she's not able to produce an adequate number of eggs, if she starts dwindling down and getting older and not as productive, if she goes under 600 eggs per day, they will set up some replacements. And when the replacements, and she'll come along, they have a bigger cell, and this is what the cell, a queen cell looks like. Now you can see that it's different than what the rest of the cells are, and it actually looks almost like a peanut in a shell. And they're just beside the there is a larva or a queen in in pupa stage, and is right there beside of the cell. Now, I'm sorry that I have all these pictures. I tried to get them to be able to be put on the PowerPoint, but there's copyright problems, and to be able to, I bought the pictures, but I don't know that I can publicly show them. So afterwards, if you want to come up and see them closer, I would welcome you to do that. The queens, 99.9% of the time, there is only one queen in a hive. And if there is ever more than one, they will fight to the death for supremacy within the hive. Especially if they're a foreign queen. Another queen that tries to take over the hive, and the original hive or the queen is still there, they'll fight. And their stinger is just like a hypodermic. It is not like the worker stinger. And they can, it's just a royal, pardon the pun, a royal battle. So, the queen communicates not by individual conversations, but the queen communicates with the rest of the hive, and they all know if she is okay because she puts off what is called pheromones. And they communicate with different pheromones, different smells, to communicate different projects in the hive and different things to be done at different times. And she will put out an okay pheromone to let the whole hive know that she is there. If something should happen to her, they will know. Within a short time, the whole hive knows that they're queenless, and things get nasty. They get aggressive, especially with their favorite beekeeper, and so there's they communicate with pheromones. The workers that are defenders of the hive. I'm very suspicious when I go near a hive and I have a bee come out and hit against me and fly off. It's not that they didn't do anything or they couldn't see. It was because they were marking me with a pheromone, marking me as an aggressor, and then a lot of help comes out of the hive, and queens will live normally between 2 and 4 years. But I have talked to a researcher out in Iowa that said that they had one that lasted 7 years. Now, and up until the last year was producing enough eggs to be able to supply the hive adequately, and they that's astonishing for a queen to last that long. Sometimes when they go out to mate, and when they mate, they only do it 1, possibly 2 days. If the weather is not good within those 2 days, and the drones they are not out because it's inclement weather, and you know how us guys are. Anyways, if it's not real good weather, they don't mate very often, and a queen will mate. The average number of times is 14 times, but it's as high as 30 times. The more she mates with different drones, the longer she will last. Okay? The longer she lasts, and it's beneficial to not only her, but to the hive, because it's a variety of genetics from what she has in her hive, and she will not mate with any drones that are from her hive. Okay? So, enough about that. Workers. You'll notice that I said that it's a caste system. The queen is the hierarchy, is the top of the hierarchy of the hive, and the worker bees are also women, are also female. They are the mainstay of the workforce of the hive. You'll soon understand why when we get to the drones. But anyways, some of their jobs during the summer, a worker will only last about 7 weeks, because they literally will work themselves to death. Some of the jobs, and this is just a partial list, but there's comb making and maintenance to the comb. There is queen support and protection. There is, we have one of these, this picture over here, and there's one over there that is like this. You'll notice that this entourage around the queen, this is a queen, and the entourage around the queen, they do everything for her. She doesn't have to go get food, they bring food to her. She doesn't have to protect herself, that entourage protects her. She doesn't have to take a bathroom break, because they will take and get rid of everything. And they do everything for her. Her main job, well, think of it. To lay 1,200 to 2,000 eggs a day, she doesn't have time for much of anything else. Okay? Hive protection. and hive protection, where there are guard bees that will go out and protect the hive and get after any good beekeeper that is around, or they may get around any kind of an aggressor. There are times when there are other bees or other aggressors that come in, other insects that try to come in and take over the hive, or try to steal honey or whatever. The workers will just crowd all around them and just surround them, and they actually smother the intruder. There is honey care. When nectar comes in from the plants, it's about between 60 and 80% moisture. And if they bring it in and it's put into the cells, but if it was left at that, it would ferment. And so they have to dry the honey. Now they do that by standing on the comb, and they will, these frames are just close enough so that there is comb on both sides of the, on this frame and this frame, and they build the comb out so that they have just 3/8 of an inch between this comb and this comb, and just 3/8 of an inch. They'll crawl up through there and fill each and every one of these cells. They're really busy. They fill them, and they'll stand on one side or the other, and they'll flap their wings and move the air over the end of each of those cells, and it actually dries out the honey and will bring it back down to about 18%. From 60 to 80% down to 18%. And then when it is down that dry, they put a cap on it. Now I've put some cellophane on this, and I hope that you can see each of those cells are capped. They're full of honey, and if you come up afterwards, I put the cellophane on it because it's kind of sticky. And so I just put it in so it didn't make a mess in that. There's honey drying. There's temperature control of the hive. They actually will stand right here on the front stoop, the front end of in front of the entrance, and they'll put their abdomen back toward the entrance and flap their wings to move air into the hive. And if it still is too warm in there, they will beard up, and they'll have a big column of bees hanging off the front just to get cool, because, well, it gets too hot in there. There is a lot of work done by the workers. And they do not even go outside of the hive for the first between 3 and 4 weeks. They stay inside the hive and do everything. And this is only just a partial job list. There's collecting of nectar, water, pollen, propolis, and they go out, find it, and they will travel. If the hive is right here, they will travel 2.5 miles in all directions, so that there's a 5-mile radius that they will circle around trying to find a nectar that they that they like and bring that nectar home, back to the hive. They'll bring it back to this spot, but if I moved it over there to that other table, they would not be able to find it. Their homing instinct to find where the hive is, if you move it more than 3 feet, they won't be able to find it. God made them real good. Now, drones. As you can see here, drones do not have a stinger. They don't have the capacity to carry nectar, water, or they don't have a defensive character. And so their only job is to, pardon me guys, but their only job is to mate with virgin queens. That's it. But just like, remember what I said about the workers when they sting? When a drone mates with a queen, all of his genitals stay right with the queen. And so then he dies. He will die. And in the fall, they will, because his usefulness is over, he's kicked out of the hive and freezes to death or starves to death, and he's done for the year. Usefulness. Let's move on to swarms. A lot of you have seen swarms, and so this is a natural instinct for the propagation or the continuing of the species of honeybees. They will, during the springtime between May and middle of June is when the most prominent time for not only feral hives, wild hives to swarm, but even my hives. They will have a tendency to swarm. And so what they do is the queen will produce some of these cells that look like this, and you can see, well, I guess you can't see over there. But anyways, it looks like this. They'll produce some of these queen cells on the comb, and then 3 or 4 days before the queen hatches out in there, the queen will give a pheromone that gets those that are going to go with her, and the bees will fill up their honey gut, and then 1/2 to 2/3 of the population in the hive will join the queen as she leaves the mature hive, and because she has been in there all of her life, and most of her life, she is not real strong, and a lot of times you'll see them congregate on a structure or something nearby, and then they'll all get together like this, and from there, what they do is they send out scouts. They'll send a scout to all scouts in all directions, and when a scout finds a spot that maybe this is good, that scout will go into that spot and measure it depth, width, and height to make sure there's enough room for all us bees. And so they will measure, and then they'll come back and convince more scouts to come check this out. I got it. Let's check this out. And so the the more scouts, when there's enough scouts convinced that this is the best place, they will all just leave and go inhabit the space for the for a new hive. And then when in 3 or 4 days after they swarm, then the new queen will come out of the queen cell, and she will put her scent in the hive, and she'll be accepted. And once she's accepted and she gets her smell inside, then she goes out and looks for drones. And once she's mated, she will come back. And in 3 or 4 days, she starts laying eggs, and it continues on. Honey collection. How do bees make honey? They collect nectar. When they collect nectar, there are the flowers that the nectar is down deep within the flowers, and when they go by the pollen on the back legs of the workers, you see the little hairs. I have seen multiple times. It's rare during the summer that the bees coming back, they may have their honey gut full of nectar, but they also will have their back legs right full of pollen. The pollen will stick to the back legs, and that is brought in, the pollen is brought in along with the nectar, and they will masticate or chew up that pollen, and there's enzymes put into it, and it will be all deposited into cells, and the cells, or that bee bread is what us guys call it. The bee bread is a source of protein for the larva. The larva will grow very, very fast. In 6 days, they go from, it's not even the full width of the bottom of the cells, but it will grow to fill up the cell, and so it needs a lot of protein. And the bee bread is a source of protein for the larva. And then they go into the pupa for the 12 days. Okay. They also bring the workers bring back the nectar, and they'll pass it off to another worker that will bring it up and put it. They'll pass it off down in here, and another worker will bring it up through the queen excluder and store it up there. And there's workers that are inside of the cell and have the job of taking care of the honey. Now I see I'm going long, and I apologize for that. As I mentioned earlier, every flower that has nectar in it that is non-poisonous to the bee is a source of nectar. And as you can see with some of the honeys that we've brought in, it will produce, what the nectar does is what the bees do, they take the nectar into and put it into a honey gut, and there is an enzyme put into it, and till they get back, that is all mixed up with a little bit of an enzyme in there, and there's a chemical reaction. And the chemical reaction, you'll notice that this buckwheat honey is quite dark. It comes out of a white flower, completely white, but it is the chemical reaction turns the honey dark, and some of the nectars do not turn it dark. Some is lighter, some is less robust in flavor, and we have some here. And if you'd like to have a taste later, we can set you up with that. Just if anybody's interested. Okay. The honey is brought into the cells. It's dried out. It's capped, and then it matures in the cell. And the way we extract it out of the comb, we have to break the caps. I have just a scraper that I scrape over the caps. It breaks the caps, and then I put it into a machine that has a spinning, it spins very much like a washing machine spins the honey, only it's not quite as fast. Or spins the clothes, it's not as fast as that, but it will sling the honey out. There's it's within a tub, and so then I just drain it out of the tub. There's a spigot there. I drain it out, and it's really rewarding to be able to. What I was going to say was, I have to test it to find out, and that's the hardest part. And the way I tell what kind of a honey it is number one, the time of the year that it is the nectar's produced, what the exposures are, the color of it, and then the hard part of tasting it. I have to do that. We filter the honey to get the wax and any propolis or any even bee parts. Sometimes we filter it out, and I was going to bring a filter along to give you how fine the filter is. And for those of you that may know, the filter is at 200 microns. You almost might not, you can see through it if you hold it up to the light, but it's really very small holes. And I have to warm it up to 100 degrees, and by just warming it up to 100 degrees, it will be viscous enough. The viscosity is fluid enough to be able to get it through the filter, because if you, even at 70 degrees, you can put, it's this big around and it's this deep, and you can put that full of honey and it will drip, drip. So it's very slow going through the filter if you don't have to. So I warm it up, and then it will go through the filter much easier. I'm almost at an hour, and I wanted to stop 10 minutes ago. Is there any questions?
Tell us more about the exact operations of the box system. What's happening where?
The operations of the box system.
The trays of cells are just going in the top box or boxes, and what's kept in the bottom with the cleanest glue.
This is a used box, and these frames, I just took these out of here. It is the comb with the caps broken off of it and gone through the extractor, and then all you do, it will fit right in there. Now you can see all of this. I don't know if you can see it. There is, up here at the top, up along the top, you can see propolis all along. That's all that is just a groove for that or a shelf for that to set in, and the frames. This is better. You can see where the frames were setting and how the bees filled in the propolis to hold that, to hold it fast. Other question? Is that adequate?
Thank you. Yeah, and then the bottom portion of it, does it also have
And the bottoms are the same thing. These are the frames that go into the bottom, and this is drawn comb. This is what it started out looking like, and this is after they built, and you can see the foundation here in the bottom of this corner where they have not finished making the comb. One other little thing, the reason I spent so much time on the comb is because, do you realize for the bees to have put comb on both sides of that foundation, it took as much effort, as much nutrients, as much time as it would take to make 11 pounds of honey. And that is for each frame. Each frame, it's a lot of work. This comb is the absolute most valuable thing that a beekeeper has, the comb. More than the bees, more than the hardware. It's very valuable. And they're the only ones that make it. Other questions?
So one, just to confirm.
So you said they range 2.5 miles in a radius of 2.5 miles?
2.5 miles this way and 2.5 miles that way. So it's a 5 mile.
You get 2 or 3 hives that overlap. Do they get in competition or fight each other?
Not so much, no. You can overwhelm an area by having too many hives in an area when some of the pollinators and beekeepers will move their hives, and they'll move in a tractor trailer load of hives, and the numbers are just overwhelming for the area, and there's not enough nectar for that to be productive.
What type of a habitat would you suggest if you want to encourage just wild honeybees?
Wild honeybees can live in the Adirondacks, complete woodland. They could be in the Midwest, in the plains, where there's no trees at all. In the Southwest, where it is just as dry as, well, where there's a lot of fires, like in California. But they can live there. They can live in the jungles of Africa. They can live most anywhere. So I try to have a combination. I like woodlands nearby. I like farmland especially farmland that is non-dairy. And I'm sorry.
What about that milk and honey?
Non-dairy because the hay that is a big source of nectar is harvested just before it blossoms. Just before it blossoms, and so the nectar has not been created yet. Now, there are times when it's very dry and they have to delay their harvest, and so, yes, I'm sorry. You go, girls. And so they will harvest wherever they have nectar. But there is, most of my bees are in areas where is dairy related, and they produce.
What about pesticides?
Pesticides are one of the stresses that the bees have to endure. We have a probiotic that we feed our bees that is, as advertised, it's supposed to help them to be able to deal with pesticides. There are different pesticides that are much more harmful to the bees than others, but a lot of the sides, fungicide, herbicide, pesticides, a lot of the sides produce pressure to the bees that are in and of themselves are not as, will not kill the bee. It doesn't do them any good, but it doesn't kill them. But when you get the pressures from this fungicide and this herbicide, et cetera, all kinds of pressure, that is one of the, a major problem with the bees.
Does that get absorbed into the honey? Do people eat that?
That's above my pay grade to answer that. But there are, for the most part, they do not bring it in. But there is some, I can't say that it's never brought in.
If they get a lethal dose, they don't make it home.
Correct.
And what does that mean exactly?
It won't be in the honey. If they get a lethal dose of something that will kill them, it won't end up in the honey because they don't make it home.
I think it can impair them enough that they can't really function as well.
Correct. Okay, you had a question?
Yeah, so you said, I think you said 1,200 to 2,000 eggs a day they lay in the peak laying season.
Mm-hmm.
Is 50% of those going to be drones?
No. They will not produce drones more, there's only less than 5% of the colony of bees will be drones, okay? And that is throughout the whole year. So they won't be 50%. And something else I didn't mention was that eggs, the queen has the capacity and uses the capacity of deciding whether it's a male egg or a female egg. They can decide, and they do that in the springtime when they when the drones there needs to be drones because it's a swarming time of the year. They'll lay more than usual drone eggs, and so but there's still, it's a very high percentage of worker eggs.
Also, so can you speak to when they make a queen cell,
Yes.
what determines that egg being a queen?
Okay, good question. The egg in a queen cell is laid, and it's a little bit bigger than the normal cells of where the workers would be. This is the size of the cell where the workers would be, and this one over here has some drone cell size. Now, I don't know if you can tell the difference, but there is a difference between the size of the cells here. And I'll leave these up here if people want to come up and look afterwards. And the queen determines which is going to be drone cells by the size of the cell that she backs her abdomen, her business end down in, and lays an egg. And that will determine whether it's a worker or that helps her determine what the capability of the cell of handling. Now, there are queen cells that are bigger. and there's queen caps that they that are throughout the brood area, and they will literally the queen usually will not lay in that unless she's getting on toward the end of her life, and then she'll lay one in there, and then the workers will give that egg, because it's a bigger cell, they know it's soon to be a queen, they will give it much more royal jelly, and then the reproductive tract of the female egg, it's the same kind of egg, and a lot of beekeepers that know a lot more than I do use larvae that are just normal worker larvae, but they pick them out of those little cells and put them into a queen cell, and then put them into a queenless hive, and the workers will then add more royal jelly to that, each and every one of those queen cells, and it will develop into a queen and be a queen within 16 days of the time that from the time that the egg was laid. Yes.
How many bees in a hive, and how many hives do you have?
I put 86 colonies of bees to bed this fall. I say that I winterize them and put them to bed. I haven't been out to see them since the first week in November. I just put some insulation on the top of them. And during the summer, at the height of the work season for the bees, there'll be 50, 60,000 bees in each colony. They may have, at this time of the year, there may be 8 or 10,000 in there, and in the winter time, the way they survive the winter, they get into a cluster, and they get wove right in so that it's really tight, and then they hold their heat inside, and the outer ones will rotate in to the center of the cluster, and others will take their place. And normally from the 1st of November, when the temperature maintains below 50 degrees, is when they go into the cluster, and then they will go into, they don't hibernate. It's just short of hibernation in a condition called torpor. Torpor is where their respirations slow down, their breathing slows down, their digestion slows down, and while they're in torpor, from November till mid-January, they only will eat maybe 5% of all the honey that is in the hive. But then in mid-January, the queen, hey girls, come on, let's go. And she'll put out a pheromone which will stimulate the hives, stimulate that cluster, and they buzz their wings and eat honey. And it's the same with us. When we work and we metabolize our food, heat is produced. Inside of that cluster of bees, what stimulates the queen to do that is, hey, the days are getting longer. Soon going to be some nectar out there. Come on, girls, let's go, let's go. And she stimulates the hive. They work by buzzing their wings and eating honey. And inside of that cluster, the temperature will get up to 93 degrees. Once it's up in that area of temperature, the queen gets to work and she starts laying eggs, because we're going to need some workers when the maples start producing buds. When there's more than there's the earliest nectar is, they have to have bees ready to go get it when it's, and because these old timers, they're not going to be able to cut it. Okay? So the numbers of bees varies throughout the year.
How many hives do you have?
How many hives do I have? I have 86 at the moment. During the summer, when I make splits, I split, and I might have, this past year, I made 70 splits, and about 40 of them were made queens and started up. I replaced the ones that died. During the winter, about 30% of the hives will die. That's normal with the pesticides and the herbicides and the pressures, diseases, things, they end when they get old. Yes.
So when we had that warm up 2 or 3 weeks ago,
Yes.
because we had snow, then it warmed up and all the snow melted, how does that affect the bees?
The bees love that because they do not defecate inside the hive. They do not go potty inside the hives. They go out on days when it warms up. A January thaw is very, very welcomed by the bees because they haven't gone potty since the 1st of November. So it's beneficial. Other questions? Yes.
I was wondering how they make the propolis, and if that's the same thing as what they make the honeycombs out of.
Okay. It's not the same thing as, the question was the propolis. How do they make it? They go to evergreen trees, and there is a gum that comes out of the evergreen. When you trim up your Christmas tree and you cut off a branch, or a branch breaks off and it's really sticky, they collect that and bring that back, and there's an enzyme that is put into that that helps to sanitize the hive, and that's where they get the propolis. But it is different than the bees' wax comb. The beeswax comb comes from a gland in their chest that they, and the younger bees have, and that's part of the reason why they don't go outside the hive. They help to make comb, they help to put caps on the honey, and so it's, beeswax is different than propolis.
Okay. The second question I had is maybe I misheard you, but you said that the drones don't stay in their own, mate with their own queen, they go off? So who comes, I mean, they must have some kind of agreement system for who goes where.
When I, with the question was, they do, comment was that they do not mate with their own queen, and that is true. There is a, and I don't know all of what determines an area. There's some speculation as whether or not it is a magnetic, something to do with the magnets of the Earth. I just don't know what chooses what it is that they choose, or why they will mate in different areas. But I have yards that I have 3 miles apart, and I have multiple hives in that yard. And so hive A might have drone A's, but hive D will have drone D's, and A and D can mate together. So that there's plenty of drones that are of different hives, and they can tell the difference. They can tell by smelling.
We want to thank Bucky very much. Very good, Bucky. It was a wonderful presentation, and please come up, check things out. I'm sure Buck's got a lot more information to tell you, so.